Welcome to another jam-packed episode of Blunt Talk Sports Podcast. Episode will be dedicated to 32 teams in 32 days. I am your host, Anthony Wright, coming to you from the nice and comfortable confines of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Wherever you may be watching or listening, I thank you as always. Like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel. You can check the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast not only here on YouTube, but you can check the podcast out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Substack, Patreon, Trovo, and as well as on Podbean. Don't forget to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Thanks. Happy to be here with you guys on this beautiful July 23rd, 2025. I hope you guys are enjoying your evening, wherever you may be watching or listening. As always, I thank you. And we're, like I said, this episode is going to be dedicated to the segment 32 teams in 32 days. We're coming up, we're about at the middle, coming up towards the end of this segment. Camp has just started, so it's a lot of things to unpack. However, this episode is going to be dedicated to the Miami Dolphins and Indianapolis Colts. We'll be looking at their 2024 season, what went wrong, what went right, and also looking at their outlook for 2025 and what I think their best case scenario for their chances or outlook for potentially making the playoffs in the AFC in the 2025 season. With that being said, though, before we get started, we always got to give a couple shout outs to a couple friends of the show. As you guys know already, we have, one of the big friends of the show is StubHub. StubHub has been very generous and kind this summer. They've been dropping a lot of creative ID links to a lot of different shows and concerts. Right now, there is a huge creative ID link spread that's been dropped for a lot of the big tours that's coming up. If you're trying to get to Beyonce's Cowboy Carter tour, Coldplay's tour, if you're cheating, don't go to any Coldplay concerts. I definitely suggest that's not a good idea. You got Post Malone's F1 Trillion tour. You also have Chris Stapleton. You all see that here right in the split screen. Drake's It's All a Blur tour. So if you're looking to definitely get out this summer, make something of your summer, spouse, friends, whatever it is, definitely check it out. Also, if you're looking into baseball like I am myself, as I am a diehard Yankees fan, there will be a creative ID link in the description box of this video. Other teams as well, whether they're Red Sox, Giants, Cubs, Dodgers, Mets, whoever your team is, there will be a creative ID link there. I implore you to definitely get out, make something of your summer. And like I said, check those tickets out at StubHub, the #1 place in the world and leading ticket getter for live events, shows, and concerts. As well, if you're an avid gamer like I am, I implore you, definitely check out the description link in the box of this video. Will be for PlayStation Direct. Sony PlayStation Direct is the best site in the world to get if you're looking for PlayStation 5, accessories to your PlayStation 5, even PlayStation 4. Don't want to discriminate out there. And also, if you're looking for just any type of accessories or bundle packages to help enhance your Sony PlayStation experience, I definitely implore you to check it out. Sony PlayStation, more than a game. All right, guys. So like I said, hopping into this episode, 32 teams in 32 days, we're going to start off with the Miami Dolphins. Kind of crazy of a season that the Miami Dolphins had. It's very simple to state going into 2025 what it is. The pressure is on for the Miami Dolphins. From coaching to management down to the players, it has to be felt. Last year was a shit show. They completely flamed out and just melted down from the middle towards the end of the season. A lot of people want to just put the blame on Tua, and rightfully, understandably so to a degree. His health plays a major factor, being the fact that he gets concussed a lot. There are a lot of things that play into the issue of why their offense doesn't move the way it needs to. But the culture there, I think, and I've reported on this going from last season into this offseason, the culture has just been fucking atrocious in Miami. I think McDaniel tried to come with a different approach. To really, get his players to buy in, more of like a laid back, chill approach. It hasn't worked. It's resonated in some success. The team has made the playoffs first couple seasons. However, last year was a major step back, especially after the way that the year prior that Tyreekhill had. He had a down year. The offense just really couldn't get it going. The defense just didn't look like as formidable as they did the year prior, even though there was some tangible things to show you that the defense played better than they did the year prior. It just wasn't good. I mean, you lose Christian Wilkins in the offseason the year prior. You lose him going into the year. That didn't look great. You lost several other key players on defense. You got rid of Vic Fangio, saying his philosophy and old school coaching style just didn't really mesh and work out. And, Anthony Weaver was the defensive coordinator. He had things that he struggled with, with the team. But as I'll, digress and get into further at a later point, they eventually put it together. But offensively, this team just struggled, and it really put the team behind the 8 ball. And that really was just the tell for the Miami Dolphins, 2024 season. As I stated, the new culture is definitely needed. McDaniel and Greer saving their job. It's really a legitimate question at this point. Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer have been tied to Tua. Chris Greer more to Tua than anything. McDaniel as well because of his offensive scheme and the way he's kind of revolutionized the way the offense operates down there and how Tua moves the ball and maneuvers the offense. With that being said, McDaniel's on the hot seat, and I feel Chris Greer's on the hot seat. These guys have to make the playoffs for them to keep their job. There is no way in hell I think that they're going to retain their job if this team wins less than 8 games or wins just as many games as they did the year prior. I think you feel like you've kind of hit a ceiling with this team at a point. And I know there's probably Dolphins fans that's going to watch this and say, everybody's saying this shit. I actually, like I said, I've been saying this now since, a year ago going into this offseason. Look at some of the moves that they've made. You've gotten rid of Jalen Ramsey already. You got rid of Jonnu Smith. You're already still talking about potentially, there's rumors out there floating that you might get rid of Tyreekhill. It's become a rat bastard situation. It's become a situation where the Miami Dolphins might take a severe step back as far as wins this year. And it's not shocking if it happens, honestly. The passing game, just major issue last year for this team. And then the running game really didn't get into rhythm, and they need to get back into rhythm. Can they even get back into a rhythm? Just a lot of questions for this Miami Dolphins team to answer going into 2025. And I think the biggest thing that is not being addressed, that needs to be addressed, is a legitimate question has to be asked is Tuatagovailoa on the clock? Looking here from the details from Spot Rack, his contract could be outed after the 2027 season. Doing our math, the last time I checked, we're already into entering the 2025 season. So be that as it may, that means 2 years from now, year and a half from now, they can get off this contract. It would be a dead cap hit, as you can see here, of $34.8 million. That is not as substantial, obviously, if they keep him a little bit longer. So I truly feel like Tua Tagovailoa is playing for his, future in Miami within this season. There's no reason not to believe it. I mean, the contract was set up to pay him and to honor him and to show him that they respect him and like him. And I know people are going to say, well, damn, you're kind of harsh on Tua. He really didn't have that bad of a year. Tua cannot stay healthy, and neither can he beat good teams, which I think really is indicative of what really is the problem with this Miami Dolphins roster and offense. Going into free agency, didn't really make a shitload of moves. Their biggest move, obviously, was signing Zach Wilson. Having a legitimate backup quarterback or a guy more or less with NFL experience that can really give you some wins or help spell some, games for you if and when, I hate to say it, but if and when Tua goes out with a concussion, it's definitely something that has to be considered. And Tua's health is obviously a factor. So all those things being considered, it just shows you that the Dolphins really realize that a lot of changes need to be made going into 2025 for them to even be a competent, sustainable, and viable franchise. Looking at the offensive rankings for the Miami Dolphins, they were pretty shitty. As I stated, they were 22nd in points, 18th in yards, 15th in passing yards, which is more or less telling you that the problem that they had, they couldn't move the ball down the field the way that they used to. Now, a funny thing about their offense, a lot of their offense is predicated off of having the running game work very well. The running game wasn't good, as I previously stated. It just became a situation where you saw, if you can limit the Dolphins' running game, there's no reason whatsoever why you should think that they can't be beat. I mean, offensively, Tua is limited. He can't take a severe hit. And the running game is just kind of, I don't want to say dilapidate. That's a bad choice of words. I would say it has deteriorated or eroded in the past several years since Mike McDaniel has been the coach. Looking here at the passing numbers, again, 15th in yards, not good. Defensive ranking, and before we go further, I want to make sure if I said defensive ranking, offensive rushing yards. They were 21st in rushing yards. That's not getting it fucking done. Comparing it to this Dolphins team who has been in the past couple of years top 10, top 15 in rushing yards, 21st, it just really shows you how mightily they took a step back last year. Now, defensively is the bright spot of this team. Anthony Weaver definitely had this team playing up to the level that they should have been. They ended up 10th in points, 4th in yards, and ended up 9th in passing yards. So a top 10 defense. Got to give Anthony Weaver a lot of credit there. Definitely some pieces there that they could work with. So the defense is definitely a bright spot. What I think was very indicative, too, was defensive rush yards. They were 9th. So it tells me that the defense is clearly not the problem with this Miami Dolphins team. It is the offense. The true question they're going to have is, can this team avoid the bad vibes that they've inherited throughout the offseason? And I must be honest, I'm not sure that they can. It's become a situation where losing so many guys becomes an issue, not having enough talent, playing in a division where, you are literally, your team has been Josh Allen's bitch for the past, 3 or 4 years. I don't know if there's a situation where Miami really is a winning team this year. In my personal opinion, I do think that, with the draft pick they made by getting Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle out of Michigan, they're trying to replace Christian Wilkins. They're trying to make the moves necessary to really put themselves in position to be a contender back, and especially one of the premier defensive lines again in football. And I think Kenneth Grant, if Weaver could get him to come along well, on the defensive line coaches can coach him up. I definitely think this guy could definitely be a stud on that defensive line. But all that being said, best case scenario for the Miami Dolphins, it would be again between 8 to 9 wins. I do think that there's a chance that they win less than 8 games, but again, best case scenario, same 8 to 9. Looking here further, next team we're going to talk about is the Indianapolis Colts. Now, the Indianapolis Colts had a very, very weird year. Last year, very chaotic, topsy-turvy, injury to the quarterback tapping out of games, the team suffering, trying to penalize them, trying to grow, not really growing, being very immature. The coach not really putting his foot down and really, staking a claim and letting it be known that the bullshit and ineptitude and incompetence that's just been exuding in this franchise won't be tolerated much further. Just something that the Colts didn't really manage well, and Shane Steichen and that team didn't really handle well. So going into this offseason, losing owner Jim Irsay, tragically, rest in peace, Jim Irsay. The Indianapolis Colts have gone through a lot of change. His daughters now have taken ownership of the team, so the team stays within the family, but different dynamic as far as the ownership group. 3 of them, but 1 is the main decision maker. 2 are, kind of have some say. But this team has gotten away and gotten what they really haven't gotten what they've needed out of Anthony Richardson, and they really have been able to acquire talent, but not really break through and get to that next level, which is playoffs, double-digit win seasons, which they've anticipated at this point that they would have already have been at. Anthony Richardson hasn't really truly elevated to the position they thought he was going to. This guy is going through a shitload of things, whether inconsistent play, injuries, whatever it is, it just hasn't really manifested for him yet. Then you go a step further. Injuries have plagued this team. However, they are competitive and feisty, and they have some pieces to create a team that could really be competent in the AFC, especially in the AFC South where, again, Jags, Titans, Texans. You got a situation where outside of Houston, you don't really have any competition. You could really win that division. So the Colts, they got to really figure it out. Because last year, not being able to really push the ball down the field hurt them tremendously. It put a lot of pressure on Jonathan Taylor. And it just create a situation where you really realize like the days are numbered for Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson if this thing doesn't turn around quickly. So that being said, they bring in Daniel Jones as an insurance policy. Brought in to challenge Anthony Richardson for that starting quarterback position. We already know Anthony Richardson is already currently battling with a shoulder injury. Apparently out until camp. Camp has just started for them, so we'll see when at some point when he comes back, if he comes back. But if Daniel Jones is the insurance policy, the Indianapolis Colts are in trouble. They have to be honest with themselves. Daniel Jones, I get it. He had a year in Kevin O'Connell's system, getting out of New York in that hellacious situation. But Daniel Jones has been a turnover machine at best and a garbage quarterback at worst. It's a situation where the Colts are, if you're hype about Daniel Jones, we have an idea how bad the QB situation is. So that being said, we're going to go into the offensive rankings from last year. Again, middle of the pack. Colts were 17th in points, 13th in yards. When you think about the fact that they have an offense where Anthony Richardson, big, statuesque quarterback, playing with the dual threat talent that he has, his completion percentage hasn't gone up, hasn't really made all the necessary smart plays that he needs to make, can make the deep throw bomb, exciting playmaking play, but can't throw the 10-yard out route, the 5-yard out. It becomes an issue. You can see now why the offensive numbers struggle, but defensively, which is something I really want to harp on with the Colts, they took so much of a step back last year, it was frightening. Pass rush wasn't there, a lot of blown coverages, situations where they should have won games, but because of defensive lapses, the other team wound up pulling out the victory. So it was just bad for the Colts all around. Defensive rankings, they were 24th in points and 29th in yards. Not great. Not great. I mean, you can clearly see that just puts you in a situation where you can't stop anybody, you're not stopping anybody, and you're just like last bullet in the gun, wins. Playing shootouts like that consistently is not going to win you football games, especially in the AFC, let alone trying to make the playoffs in the AFC. And then you go a step further when you look at the passing yards for both teams. Offensively, like I stated, I didn't mention, the Colts were 25th in passing yards, so clearly couldn't move the ball down the field consistently and persistently the way they wanted to. And defensively, they were 26th in passing yards, so a lot of work to be done offensively and defensively in that description. Rushing yards, the Colts offense was 8th in rushing yards. However, defensively, they were 24th. So the major hole is the defense. However, then get some competent quarterback play. This team possibly could make the playoffs, especially with the way Shane Steichen has coached his team. Because I don't want to paint the narrative that Shane Steichen has been a bad coach. Shane Steichen has been a good coach. However, the culture issues that he's experiencing, just like Mike McDaniel just aforementionedly is dealing with in Miami, it's going to just breed a situation of discontent where once things get real rough and they fall apart, there's no going back from that, and then Shane Steichen's fired. Just rough if you're the Colts. You have to understand what the situation is. Also, you don't have an idea which quarterback will ascend, but who will ascend to become the starter. My money was on Anthony Richardson until the shoulder injury. Now that he has the shoulder injury, there's no reason why Daniel Jones shouldn't take these reps, take this status, take this possible opportunity to reclaim his career in the NFL and win some games. So who will ascend? I think it'll be Daniel Jones. I'm pulling out, though, that Anthony Richardson can get healthy and make an impact this year for that Indianapolis team. Looking to this next question, can this team shock people and actually win this division? If they're going to do that, they're going to have to do it with the guys and the likes of guys whom they drafted. Tight end Tyler Warren out of Penn State, big physical specimen, can catch the ball, good blocker as well. Something that was needed along the offensive line in Indianapolis, and I definitely feel like right now, if you get a guy like that with some of the pieces that they have staying healthy, there's definitely a chance they can actually win the division. Now, again, Houston Texans are going to have something to say about that, but I just feel like right now in that situation, they do have opportunity, especially if they're healthy. And ultimately, can the passing game finally look competent enough for the Colts to retain Shane Steichen? Because I do believe if they go out there and shit the bed, Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson, whomever, if they go out there and shit the bed and don't put out a decent enough product offensively, especially at the quarterback position, I do feel like that the sisters are going to the daughters of Jim Irsay, are more than likely going to make a change and get rid of Shane Steichen. And it's not because he's a bad coach, but you always have to think about the next step and how far are we going and what is ultimately the agenda. That's going to do it for this episode, guys. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I thank you. Love you guys for always plugging in. Take care and enjoy the rest of your evening. Hey to all my fans and subscribers out in the UK. Looking to get out this weekend, looking to make something of your week, then look no further than the Viagogo, the #2 leading ticket seller in the world for live events, shows, and concerts. Definitely check it out. If you're looking for exclusive tickets, look in the description of my videos on the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast. Take care and enjoy your day.